So we're back once again with the great man, Dr. Peter Glidden, taking a deep dive on some of these Youngevity products, getting to the bottom of why they are so good. It's touched obviously on the tangy tangerine, but the plant-derived minerals, which is another flagship product for the company. I'd like you to explain a little bit more about where it comes from, what it's about, what makes it special, and the properties in it, that are just so good for health.
Again, and this is a really interesting story. I mean, it just every time you turn a stone over, the pun intended, with Youngevity, there's a really interesting story behind it, and not just a story, but a really, really interesting story, right? So Wallach figured out that there were 60 minerals that are essential to human health, right? Essential. The body needs them, can't make them. And they're not in the food, they're not in the soil. Some of them are, but most of them aren't. So what are you going to do? Well, as it turns out, there's a mine in Utah which contains deposits from dinosaur days of plants, giant. I mean, not only, a lot of people don't understand this, but back in dinosaur days, it wasn't just the animals that were huge, the plants also were huge. And there was a biome, an ecosystem in that part of the world which was perfect for the accumulation of minerals. And remember, plants can't make minerals, animals can't make minerals, right? God, nature makes minerals, and minerals come from rocks and erosion, right? Like the White Cliffs of Dover, the calcium carbonate. There it
Right.
is. So as it turns out, back in dinosaur days, there was an ecosystem in what is now southwestern Utah, which was perfect for the accumulation of minerals, right? Because minerals erode off of the mountains, they go into the lakes, and the rivers, and the rivers feed the lakes. The lakes feed the savanna, and the deltas and the marshes and all of that, and then the plants grow wild. And that's one of the reasons, again, that the dinosaurs were so big, is because the food that they were eating was loaded with minerals. The oxygen content of the atmosphere was also way higher than it is right now, all of which came together to make the possibility of giant um, living systems a thing. So you've got giant plants sucking up minerals for millions of years. Now, when a plant dies and decays, the sugars and the starches and the cellulose and all of the organic material that's in the plant decays and disappears and is recycled by the environment, but the minerals don't. You can't degrade a mineral. I mean, in a blast furnace, you can. But when a plant that's loaded with minerals decays, what's left in the detritus are the minerals.
Mm.
And so, as time goes by, geological time is a hard thing for people to conceive of. Number one, and number two, it's these concepts are just it's really difficult to have a sense of the time that goes on here. But nonetheless, so as the eons progress and more plants die and lay down on top of each other, right? You get a super concentration of minerals. And in geology, that will eventually go to a peat bog, and then it goes to something called humic shale, and then the humic shale will be concentrated into coal or oil, right? As
Mm.
depending on the geological factors. Well, as again, fate would have it, in this particular part of the world, the as all of these mineral rich plants died and decayed and piled up on top of each other, it went through the peat phase and it got to the humic shale phase. And then it stopped at the humic shale phase because another geological event happened, and this part of the world was capped with a large deposit of limestone. So it was the limestone deposit in this particular area which stopped the transition from humic shale to whatever comes next. So you have all of these organic, plant derived, super concentrated minerals stuck in the humic shale formation part of, the evolution of stone.
Right, and that's the sort of elixir, to this product range. That's a sort of a magic ingredient in there.
Yeah,
That
Youngevity, it's an unbelievable. I've been to the mine
right.
in southern Utah, and when you take a scoop up, a handful of the humic shale, looks like just crumbly rock.
Mm,
You put it in water, or you take a rock of humic shale and you pour water on top of it, minerals start to bubble out of
really?
it. Yeah, when Youngevity first developed this, their first mineral product was called blooming minerals
Oh,
for
for the
this reason.
soil.
The stone is so loaded with minerals that they just literally bubble right up out of the rock when they're exposed to water. So,
Wow.
and it's remarkable. So, it is a source of organic, plant derived minerals, eh, super concentrated. And here's the rub: if you were to go to the White Cliffs of Dover, which is calcium carbonate, and dig the calcium carbonate up out of the ground, put it in a bucket, it's calcium carbonate, and you took it home and you took it to a laboratory and purified it to get all the whatever wasn't calcium carbonate out of it, and then you pulverized it, and then you put it in a capsule and swallowed it, your body could absorb, maybe if you're lucky, 15% of that.
Hmm.
And by the way, if it's calcium carbonate and it's 500 milligrams, 250 milligrams more or less are calcium, 250 milligrams of carbonate. So you're not getting 500 milligrams of calcium, you're getting 250 milligrams of calcium, which is
Right.
only 15% absorbable if you're lucky. But if you take that pulverized calcium carbonate from the White Cliffs of Dover and you put it in your garden and you let the plants suck it up, as the plant metabolizes the mineral, it changes the molecular form of the mineral, making whatever mineral it absorbed, in this case calcium, extremely easy for animals to absorb. So plant derived minerals are 1,000 times easier for animals, including the human animal, to absorb than just a mineral sitting in the ground. And this is the beauty, and this is where the magic of Youngevity lies. Because this stuff, it's like pre-digested minerals.
Yeah, and I think a lot, and just touching on that though, that there's a lot of what you call metallic minerals that tend to be on sale in your local Holland and Barrett over here we have, and your local health food stores, and certainly your local supermarkets. That these just don't get absorbed, do they, at all? This is why I said in a previous video that don't supplement for the sake of it. If you haven't tried these things, and you don't know, and you're wanting to have a look, it's really, really worth giving it a go. It's you really do feel the difference, 100%. Just one last thing on the mineral side of things, I think there's worth maybe discussing is why is it that I remember my nan used to, and until listening to yourself and Doc Wallach, never quite understood why she used to dig the ash back into the garden, when because they used to grow a lot more vegetables back in those days. They had to, had a patch of land. It was famine time. You had to work your garden. Why did they take the ash? What was the relevance of digging ash back into the soil for your plants? Yeah.
Same strategy as the humic shale, except less concentrated, right? So when a plant is growing in the soil, whatever it is, whether it's a flower or a bush or a tree or a shrub, doesn't matter. If it's a growing plant, it's got roots, and the roots are sucking minerals out of the soil and transforming the mineral into a different form that's held in the plant that the plant uses for itself and then that animals use. There's a symbiotic relationship, right?
Mm.
So when you burn a plant or a tree or whatever, you're going to burn up the sugars and the cellulose and the water and the organic material, but you can't burn the mineral.
Right.
I mean, unless it's a million-degree blast furnace, and then you just melt the mineral, right?
Right.
So what's left in the ash is mostly minerals. Whatever minerals the plant sucked out of the soil. Now, back in the day, people didn't know about minerals in the wood ash, but they knew that if they put the wood ash in the gardens, the plants were healthier and tasted
Mm.
better. So
And what?
that's why they did it.
Yeah, and wasn't there a correlation somewhere of Edison flicking the switch and moving over to electricity as opposed to burning wood ashes for
Yeah,
fuel?
this was an unintended consequence of the technical revolution, the industrial revolution.
And what happened there?
Well, so before electricity, everybody cooked and heated with wood,
Hmm.
and what was left was wood ash. And
AKA minerals, right?
human beings are smart, and so they would recycle the wood ash. You just leave it. There it is. You got to use it for something. So they'd recycle the wood ash and they'd sell it to farmers. And then they'd sell it to people with, home gardens. And interestingly, the potash, of all the ash, the potash was the most expensive because the potash was called potash because, back in the day, if you're cooking soup in a pot over the fire, the heat from the wood would bounce up and hit the bottom of the pot and then bounce back. So that part of the fire was the hottest part of the fire. And the ash there was white because the extra heat that was generated by being in that position burned away all of the carbon and left very pure ash, which was, 99.99% minerals. And so potash was more expensive than the gray ash around the periphery of the fire. But nonetheless, they'd sell all of it for agricultural uses. They didn't know about minerals, but they knew that if they put the stuff in the garden, everything worked better. So
Yeah.
now Edison comes along, flips the electricity switch. What do people do? They stop burning wood. So no more wood ash. So ever since electricity has been a thing, there's been less minerals in the food because
Right.
nobody's using the ash anymore. And less minerals in the food directly, directly, directly correlates to the increased incidence of chronic disease.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, that wraps that up for plant-derived minerals. And listen, if you want to get your hands on these products, then have a look directly here in the UK or in Europe. Have a look at the links below in the description. We've got at the bottom of the screen here. You can have a look at the website links too. Thank you so much again for that. It's been so insightful. And we look forward to seeing you on the next video.